The peaceful Aurelian star system had always been known for its magnificent dual suns and floating crystal cities. But today, those skies were filled with the ominous shapes of Void Raider ships, their angular black hulls cutting through the atmosphere like daggers. Screams echoed through the research outpost as scientists and civilians alike ran for evacuation shuttles. Nari clutched her research tablet to her chest, her pale blue skin pulsing with frightened light patterns as she sprinted down the corridor. The patterns rippling across her skin betrayed her emotions, a trait of her species that made hiding fear impossible. "This way," shouted her colleague as they rounded the corner toward the last functioning shuttle bay. Nari jumped aboard, relief washing over her as the doors began to close. Too soon. The shuttle shuddered violently as tractor beams locked onto its hull, metal groaning in protest. "They've got us," the pilot said, voice hollow with defeat. Moments later, the doors burst open, and Void Raiders in their signature bone-white armor stormed in, weapons raised. The leader scanned the huddled Aurelians before pointing directly at Nari. "That one, the female with the brightest bioluminescence, she'll fetch the highest price." Rough hands grabbed her arms, the Raider's touch sending uncomfortable static through her empathic senses. As an Aurelian xenobiologist, Nari had studied dozens of species, but never had she felt the cold emptiness that radiated from these captors. They dragged her to their ship, throwing her into a holding cell with other rare species collected from across the sector. Days passed in the darkness of the cell. The Raiders fed their cargo just enough to keep them alive. Nari's skin had dimmed to a faint glow, her body conserving energy as hope faded. She overheard the Raiders talking about collectors who paid fortunes for rare specimens, especially Aurelians, whose numbers had dwindled to near extinction over the past century. Somewhere in an uncharted sector of space, Captain Han of the HFY human exploratory vessel Pathfinder was enjoying a rare quiet moment. Humans were still newcomers to the Galactic Coalition, often viewed with a mixture of curiosity and dismissal by older species. His ship's mission, mapping unexplored regions, was considered low-priority work that the Coalition had gladly handed off to the eager humans. "Captain," his communications officer called out, breaking the silence. "We're picking up a distress signal. Aurelian encryption." Han straightened in his chair. "Location?" "About half a light year from our position. Signals degraded, but wait, there's something else. Tracking data suggests Void Raider signatures in the area." The bridge fell silent. The Void Raiders were notorious throughout the galaxy, and Coalition protocol was clear. Exploratory vessels should avoid engagement and call for proper military response. "How long would Coalition response take?" Han asked, though he already knew the answer. "Nearest patrol is 3 days out, sir." Han ran a hand through his short black hair, eyes fixed on the star chart. 3 days was too long. He'd seen the aftermath of Void Raider attacks before. "Plot an intercept course," he ordered, "and prep the stealth systems." "Captain, protocol clearly states—" "I know what protocol states," Han cut in, his voice firm but not unkind. "But those people won't be alive in 3 days. We're going." The Pathfinder's engines hummed to life as they changed course. Humanity might be new to the stars, but they'd quickly developed stealth technology that surprised many older species. It was one of the few areas where humans had advanced beyond expectations. Their Galactic Coalition peers still didn't quite understand how humans had made such leaps in such a short time. 16 hours later, the Pathfinder silently approached the massive Void Raider vessel. Han led the rescue team himself, their boarding craft attaching to the Raider's hull like a remora on a shark. "Remember," Han whispered as they cut through the airlock, "we get the prisoners and get out. No heroics." The team moved through the dimly lit corridors, disabling security systems with practiced efficiency. When they reached the holding area, the sight that greeted them made even the veteran members pause. Dozens of cells filled with species from across the galaxy, many barely alive. Han moved quickly from cell to cell, directing his team to help the prisoners while he continued deeper into the holding area. In the last cell, he found a slender figure huddled in the corner, skin giving off just enough blue light to illuminate her face. I'm Captain Han of the Pathfinder, he said softly, disabling the cell's energy field. We're here to help. Nari looked up, her large iridescent eyes widening in surprise. Human? She whispered, her universal translator making her voice sound slightly mechanical. The Coalition sent humans? The Coalition doesn't know we're here, Han admitted, offering his hand. Can you walk? Before she could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. We've been detected, crackled a voice through Han's communicator. Main rescue team is returning to the ship, but the path to your location is cut off. Han helped Nari to her feet. Looks like we're taking the scenic route, he said with a grim smile. Stay close. They hadn't made it halfway down the corridor when 3 raiders rounded the corner ahead. Han pushed Nari behind him, drawing his weapon, but not fast enough. The lead raider fired, the energy blast catching Han in the shoulder and spinning him against the wall. Nari watched in horror as he slumped to the floor, blood darkening his uniform. Without thinking, she knelt beside him, placing her hands on his wound. Her species' natural healing abilities weren't meant for other life forms, but she had to try. Her skin brightened, pulsing with concentrated light as she channeled energy into his injury. Han gasped as warmth spread through his shoulder, the pain receding. He looked up at Nari in amazement, feeling an odd connection forming, like a whisper of her thoughts brushing against his consciousness. Behind you, he shouted, pulling her down as another blast scorched the wall where she'd been. In one fluid motion, he rolled to his feet, returning fire with deadly accuracy despite his injury. You know how to use this? He asked, handing Nari a smaller weapon from his belt. Point and discharge energy, she replied with unexpected determination. The principle seems universal. Together, they fought their way through the ship, an unlikely pair finding rhythm in chaos. Han's tactical training complemented Nari's quick thinking and surprising adaptability. When they finally reached the Pathfinder's boarding point, the rescue team was holding position, providing covering fire as prisoners were evacuated. Your shoulder, his second-in-command started to say as they rushed aboard. We'll wait. Han finished helping Nari into the craft. Everyone accounted for? All rescue team members present. We freed 23 prisoners. As the boarding craft detached, Han felt Nari's hand on his arm. Your people risked everything, she said quietly. The Coalition says humans are unpredictable, even dangerous. They never mentioned brave. Han smiled, wincing slightly as the adrenaline wore off and his shoulder began to throb again. Maybe you should update their records. The craft shuddered as the Void Raiders opened fire, but moments later, they were safely aboard the Pathfinder, which vanished into the depths of space, leaving their pursuers searching empty sensor readings. In the ship's medical bay, as human doctors worked alongside freed prisoners with medical knowledge, Nari watched Han with newfound curiosity. There was much about humans she clearly needed to learn. The medical bay of the Pathfinder hummed with activity as human doctors treated the rescued prisoners. Nari sat on the edge of a bed, watching as a doctor finished applying a regeneration patch to Captain Han's shoulder. Her own healing attempt had stopped the bleeding, but human medicine would finish the job properly. You should be good as new in about 12 hours, the doctor said, stepping back. Though I'd recommend light duty for at least a day. Han nodded, rolling his shoulder experimentally. Thanks, Doc. As the doctor moved on to other patients, Han turned to Nari. And thank you. Whatever you did out there probably saved my arm. Nari's skin rippled with soft blue patterns, an Aurelian expression of modesty. It was basic empathic healing. I wasn't sure it would work on a human. Well, it did. Han gestured to the door. Come on, let's find you some quarters. You must be exhausted. As they walked through the corridors of the ship, Nari couldn't help but stare at everything. The Pathfinder wasn't as sleek or advanced as Aurelian vessels, but there was something appealing about its practical design. Crew members. They nodded respectfully at Han but couldn't hide their curious glances at Nari. Most had only heard stories about Aurelians. I apologize for the attention, Han said, noticing her discomfort. You're the first Aurelian any of us have met in person. And you're only the third human I've encountered, Nari admitted. though the Aurelian Science Academy has extensive files on your species. Han raised an eyebrow. Oh? And what do those files say about us? Nari hesitated. That humans are unpredictable, emotional, that you advanced remarkably quickly but lack the patience for deep space exploration, that the Coalition only admitted Earth to keep humans contained rather than let them develop independently. Han laughed, surprising her. Well, they got the emotional part right. The rest, he shrugged. We're working on changing those perceptions. They reached a small but comfortable cabin. These are guest quarters, Han explained. The replicator can provide food and basic necessities. I'll have someone bring you some clothes. Nari looked around the room, relief washing over her at having a safe, private space after days in a crowded cell. Thank you, Captain. Han, he corrected. When we're not on the bridge, just Han. After he left, Nari collapsed onto the bed, her body finally processing the trauma of the past days. She slept for nearly 15 hours straight. When she woke, she found a set of clothes laid out. A simple tunic and pants in soft gray fabric, modified to accommodate the bioluminescent patches on her shoulders and arms. The thoughtfulness of this gesture wasn't lost on her. The ship's mess hall was half full when she entered. Conversations paused momentarily before resuming, crew members trying not to stare too obviously. Nari hesitated at the entrance until she spotted Han waving her over to a table he shared with 3 other officers. Everyone, this is Nari, Han said as she approached. Nari, meet my senior staff, Jun, my first officer, Tai Ho, chief engineer, and Sumin, our science officer. Sumin's eyes lit up. I've read about Aurelian biochemistry. Is it true your bioluminescence changes based on complex emotional states rather than simple biological processes? Sumin, Han warned. She just sat down. It's all right, Nari said, her skin glowing slightly brighter, the Aurelian equivalent of a smile. Yes, our light patterns reflect our emotional state. It made my people terrible at deception, which is why we developed such strong empathic abilities instead. We sense what others feel rather than relying on what they say. The conversation flowed more easily than Nari expected. The humans were curious but respectful, and she found herself explaining Aurelian culture between bites of the surprisingly decent replicated food. So what happens now? She asked eventually. Han's expression grew more serious. We're heading to the nearest Coalition outpost at Meridian Station. From there, arrangements can be made to return you to Aurelian space. Nari nodded slowly. The prospect should have filled her with relief, but instead, she felt an unexpected reluctance. Later that day, Han gave her a tour of the ship. The Pathfinder wasn't large by Coalition standards, but its systems were impressively integrated. In the engine room, Taeho proudly showed off modifications he'd made to the standard design. Coalition engineers said it couldn't be done, he explained, patting a humming conduit. But humans have always been good at making things work that shouldn't. Nari noticed how the crew functioned differently than Aurelian teams. Where her people moved with careful precision and minimal communication, their empathic abilities making words unnecessary, humans were constantly talking, joking, even arguing good-naturedly as they worked. It seemed chaotic, yet somehow effective. On the bridge, Han showed her the navigation system. We're mapping sectors that the Coalition considers low priority, he explained. It's not glamorous work, but it's important. There's a lot of universe out there. Nari studied the star charts. My people once explored extensively, but after the Great Plague reduced our numbers, we became more insular. These sectors here, she pointed to a region of space, were once Aurelian territories, though that was centuries ago. Han looked at her with newfound interest. You're a historian as well as a scientist? All Aurelian scientists study our history. We believe context is essential to understanding. She paused. My specialty is actually xenobiology, the study of other species. Well, you've got plenty of subjects on this ship, Han joked. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the science station. Captain, called the officer on duty. "We're picking up unusual energy readings from an asteroid field ahead." Han moved to look at the readings, Nari following curiously. The screen showed a cluster of asteroids with strange energy signatures pulsing between them. "What do you make of it?" Han asked his science team. Xiaomin frowned at her instruments. "Not natural, that's for sure. The pattern suggests some kind of communication, but it's nothing in our database." Nari leaned closer, her eyes widening. "I've seen something similar before. This resembles remnant technology." "Remnant?" Han asked. "An ancient species that predates even Aurelian space exploration. They left technology throughout this sector. My people studied their artifacts for generations." The science team looked at her expectantly. Han gestured to the readings. Any insights would be appreciated. For the next hour, Nari worked alongside Sumin, analyzing the energy patterns. The human crew watched in fascination as she explained the significance of each frequency. "It's a navigation node," she concluded. "Essentially a signpost or warning marker. The remnants use them to mark dangerous spatial phenomena." Han looked from Nari to the asteroid field. "So we should steer clear?" "Actually," she said, "the pattern indicates the danger has passed. It's like an abandoned road sign. The warning is obsolete." The science team verified her analysis, confirming that whatever danger once existed had dissipated centuries ago. Han made the decision to proceed through the field, collecting valuable data on the remnant technology. That evening, as Nari sat, alone in the observation lounge watching stars streak by, Han joined her with 2 cups of tea. "That was impressive work today," he said, sliding 1 cup toward her. "The science team can't stop talking about it." Nari accepted the drink gratefully. It felt good to be useful. "You miss it, don't you?" "Your work." She nodded. The research outpost was studying interspecies genetic compatibility. It was important work. They sat in comfortable silence for a while before Han spoke again. "We received a communication today from Coalition Command." Nari tensed. "About me?" "About all of us. They've instructed us to divert to Starbase Omega, rather than Meridian Station." Han's expression was carefully neutral. "It's unusual. Omega is primarily a military installation." "Is that concerning?" Han hesitated. "Probably nothing. But there was something else. The Void Raiders have put a bounty out. On both of us specifically." Nari's skin darkened with concern. "Why would they target you?" "I'm the captain who embarrassed them. But you?" Han leaned forward. "Why would pirates place such a high value on capturing one Aurelian scientist?" Before Nari could answer, the ship's communication system chimed. "Captain to the bridge. We have an urgent situation." Han stood quickly. "Stay here. I'll be back." But as she watched him hurry away, Nari couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The fragments of memory from her capture, particularly the glimpse of an official coalition uniform observing her through the cell barrier, suddenly seemed more significant. Her skin pulsed with worry as she stared out at the stars. Whatever connection she'd formed with Han and his crew, whatever tenuous trust was building between them, she feared it would soon be tested in ways none of them were prepared for. Nari paced the observation lounge, her skin flickering with anxious, blue pulses. 20 minutes had passed since Han rushed to the bridge, and the ship's subtle vibrations had changed. They were altering course. Finally, the door slid open, and Han returned, his expression tense. "What's happening?" she asked. "We're diverting to Starbase Omega as ordered," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "But I don't like it. Something feels off." "Your instincts are correct," Nari said quietly. "When I was captured, before you rescued me, I saw something I've been trying to remember clearly." She closed her eyes, concentrating. "There was someone watching me in the cell. Not a Void Raider, but someone in a Coalition uniform. Dark blue with silver trim." Han's eyes narrowed. "Intelligence Division. They're not supposed to operate outside Coalition space without oversight." He sat down heavily. "This complicates things." I should tell you something about my research, Nari said, sitting across from him. The outpost wasn't just studying general xenobiology. We were specifically researching Aurelian empathic abilities. My team had discovered something significant, a genetic marker that might allow for conscious empathic transference. In normal words? Han asked. The ability to share emotions and sensations across species barriers, deliberately rather than instinctively. Nari's skin darkened. It could have medical applications, but in the wrong hands. It could be weaponized, Han finished. Forced empathic connections, mind control essentially. Nari nodded grimly. And I'm one of the few Aurelians with this specific genetic marker. Han leaned forward, lowering his voice. We need to be careful. If someone in Coalition intelligence is involved with the Void Raiders, they might be waiting for us at Starbase. Omega, Nari concluded. Their conversation was interrupted by a ship-wide announcement. All senior staff report to the briefing room. Han stood. Come with me. I want you there for this. The briefing room was already full when they arrived. Jun, the first officer, was displaying a star chart on the main screen. Conversation stopped when Han and Nari entered. Updates? Han asked. Taking his seat, Jun gestured to the chart. We've plotted our course to Starbase Omega as ordered. Arrival in 28 hours. He hesitated. There's something else. We've detected unusual communication patterns in the ship's systems, brief power fluctuations in non-essential areas. Meaning? Han prompted. Tae-ho, the chief engineer, spoke up. Someone's accessing our systems without authorization. I've run diagnostics 3 times. It's subtle, but it's there. A hacker? Han asked. Not from outside, Tae-ho replied. It's coming from within the ship. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. One of the rescued prisoners? Jun suggested. Or someone already aboard, Han said quietly. Suman, run full background checks on everyone, including the rescue team. Jun, implement Security Protocol 7. Limit system access to bridge crew only. Tae-ho, can you trace these intrusions? The engineer nodded. I'll try, but whoever's doing this knows our systems well. After the meeting dispersed, Han and Nari walked the quiet corridors of the night cycle ship. I don't like this, Han admitted. Someone's playing a long game, and we're just starting to see the board. What will you do? Nari asked. Han stopped, looking at her intently. What would you do if our positions were reversed? The question surprised her. On an Aurelian vessel, she would never be asked for tactical input. She considered carefully. I would appear to follow orders, she said, slowly while preparing for betrayal. I would secure allies I trust absolutely, and I would create an alternative plan that no one would expect. A small smile crossed Han's face. Great minds think alike. That night, Nari slept fitfully, her dreams filled with fragmented memories of her capture. She saw the Coalition officer more clearly now, an older man with cold eyes watching her through the cell barrier. He was speaking to someone, saying, "The Aurelian female is perfect. Her genetic markers are exactly what we need." She woke with a gasp, her skin glowing brightly enough to illuminate the whole room. The ship's systems indicated it was early morning, just after 0500 hours. Too restless to return to sleep, she dressed and headed for the mess hall. The ship was quiet, with only the night shift crew at their posts. In the mess hall, she found Han alone, nursing a cup of coffee and studying a data pad. Trouble sleeping? He asked as she approached. Dreams, she admitted. More memories surfacing. He pushed a mug toward her. Try this. It's a tea my grandmother used to make. Helps calm the mind. The gesture touched her. Such small kindnesses weren't common in Aurelian culture, where practicality usually overrode sentiment. She took a sip, surprised by the pleasant, slightly sweet flavor. You're up early. Yourself, she observed. Planning, he replied, turning his datapad so she could see. It displayed the schematics for a small shuttle. This is the Whisper, stealth scout vessel, officially decommissioned last month due to power coupling issues. Officially? Nari caught his meaning. Han nodded. Tejo and I may have exaggerated those issues in our reports. The Whisper is fully functional, unmarked, and stored in Auxiliary Bay 3. An escape plan, Nari murmured. A contingency, Han corrected. One I'm hoping we won't need. Their conversation was cut short by an urgent call from the bridge. Captain, we have an incoming vessel on intercept course. Coalition registry. Han was on his feet immediately. I'll be right there. Nari, come with me. On the bridge, the tactical officer reported. Coalition patrol vessel Sentinel hailing us, sir. Han nodded. On screen. The view screen activated, showing a stern-faced Coalition officer. Pathfinder, this is Commander Kang of the Sentinel. Prepare. To be boarded for inspection. On what grounds, Commander? Han asked calmly. Intelligence suggests you're harboring a fugitive from Coalition justice, Kang replied. An Aurelian female involved in illegal genetic research. Surrender her immediately. Nari felt her skin go cold, the luminescence dimming to almost nothing. Han's expression didn't change, but she noticed his hands tighten on the arms of his command chair. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding, Han said. We have a rescued Aurelian scientist aboard, yes, but she's a victim of Void Raider piracy, not a fugitive. Check your own records. The Coalition Science Division had a registered outpost in the Aurelian system. Our orders come directly from Coalition Intelligence, Kang countered. Prepare to be boarded, or we will consider it an act of defiance against the Coalition. Han muted the transmission and turned to his crew. Options? June spoke first. We could stall them, request verification from Coalition Command. They'd just override it, the communications officer said. We could surrender Nari, suggested one. Junior officer immediately wilting under Han's sharp look. Not an option, Han said firmly. Nari stepped forward. What if I went with them voluntarily? I could... No, Han cut her off. Once you're in their custody, we'd have no way to help you. He turned to the tactical officer. How long until they're in tractor beam range? 3 minutes, sir. Han made his decision. Jun, transfer command codes to my station. Helm, plot a course for the Crimson Nebula. Maximum speed. Tactical, prepare to deploy countermeasures on my mark. The crew exchanged glances. The Crimson Nebula was notorious for its electromagnetic interference. Ships could disappear in there for weeks. Impossible to track. Sir, June said quietly. That's a direct violation of Coalition orders. I'm aware. Han's voice was steady. Anyone who objects to this course of action may leave the bridge now. No repercussions. No one moved. Han nodded, a flicker of pride crossing his face. Disengage communications. Helm, execute course. Tactical, countermeasures now. The ship lurched as it suddenly accelerated away from the Sentinel, launching a spread of sensor jamming buoys behind them. The view screen showed the Coalition vessel growing smaller before it turned to pursue. They're charging weapons, the tactical officer reported. Shields up, Han ordered. Evasive pattern Delta. The Pathfinder shuddered as it took a glancing hit from the Sentinel's forward guns. Damage to Deck 4, Sections 7 through 9, reported the engineering station. Shields holding at 87%. Keep our course, Han said grimly. We need to reach the nebula before they call for reinforcements. For the next 20 minutes, the Pathfinder played a dangerous game of cat and mouse with the Sentinel, taking occasional hits but steadily drawing closer to the roiling red clouds of the nebula. The crew worked with grim efficiency, nobody questioning Han's orders, despite knowing they were all risking their careers, possibly their freedom. Nari watched in amazement. No Aurelian captain would risk so much for a single person, let alone an outsider. When the ship finally plunged into the nebula's protective embrace, the instruments going haywire as the Sentinel's pursuit was lost in the electromagnetic chaos, she found herself overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. We've done it, June announced. They've lost our signal, we're clear. The bridge crew let out a collective breath. Han stood, his expression serious. I know what I've asked of you today, he said to his crew. And I know what this means for all of us. We're now officially in violation of Coalition directives. He paused. Anyone who wants to record their formal protest may do so. I'll ensure it's noted that you acted under direct orders. Sumin stood from her science station. With respect, Captain, I think I speak for everyone when I say we'd like to know exactly what we're fighting for. All eyes turned to Nari. Her skin rippled, with emotion as she steadied herself. Then, making a decision, she stepped to the center of the bridge. I can show you, she said, if you'll allow me. Taking a deep breath, she called upon her empathic abilities in a way she rarely did, projecting her memories, the research, the capture. The Coalition officer's cold eyes, the fear, and finally, the moment Han had appeared in her cell doorway, offering help when all hope seemed lost. The bridge fell silent as the crew experienced her emotions directly, understanding in a way words could never convey. That, Han said quietly into the silence that followed, is what we're protecting. Not just Nari, but what they want to take from her, the ability to connect, to understand each other across all boundaries. And that's something worth fighting for. One by one, the crew nodded their agreement. No formal protests would be recorded. The Crimson Nebula swirled outside the viewports of the Pathfinder, casting everything in an eerie red glow. 3 days had passed since their narrow escape. From the Coalition patrol vessel, the ship drifted in the nebula's dense clouds, running on minimal power to avoid detection while Han and his crew assessed their options. In the ship's conference room, Han stood before a holographic display showing the last known positions of Coalition vessels. His senior staff sat around the table, faces grim with the reality of their situation. The good news is there's no sign they've tracked us, Han said, pointing to the display. The nebula's interference is working in our favor. The bad news is we can't stay here forever. Our supplies will last another 2 weeks at most. Jun, his loyal first officer, leaned forward. What about the nearest independent outposts? Tarragon Station might take us in. Too risky, Tejo countered. They'd sell us out the moment a Coalition ship offered the right price. Nari sat quietly at the end of the table, feeling the weight of responsibility. These people had risked everything for her. She couldn't let it be for nothing. There might be another option, she said, drawing everyone's attention. My scans picked up a small moon at the edge of the nebula. It appears uninhabited but has a breathable atmosphere. We could land there, power down completely, and buy ourselves time to figure out our next move. Sumin checked the data on her pad. She's right. The moon's composition would mask our signature even if they did sweep the area. It's our best option. Han nodded. Set a course, but keep us deep in the nebula until we're directly above the landing site. I don't want to leave the nebula's cover until the last possible moment. 6 hours later, the Pathfinder touched down on the barren surface of the moon. Rolling hills of rust-colored dust stretched in every direction under a sky tinged purple by the nearby nebula. With the ship powered down to emergency systems only, Han assembled a small team to explore their temporary haven. We need to conserve the ship's air supply, he explained as they suited up in the airlock. Atmosphere readings show this place is breathable, but stay alert. We don't know what might be out there. The team consisted of Han, Nari, Sumin, and 2 security officers. As they stepped onto the moon's surface, the eerie quiet struck them immediately. The only sound was the soft crunch of their boots on the dusty ground and their own breathing. Spread out, Han ordered. Stay within visual range. Look for anything useful. Water sources, shelter options, anything of interest. They moved slowly across the landscape. Sumin took readings with her scanner, occasionally stopping to collect samples. The security officers established a perimeter, weapons at the ready despite the apparent emptiness of the place. Nari walked a few paces behind Han, her attention caught by strange formations in the distance. Han, she called, look at those structures, they're too regular to be natural. Han squinted at the horizon. You're right. Let's check it out. As they approached, the structures revealed themselves to be ruins, crumbling walls and pillars, half buried in the moon's dust. The architecture was unlike anything Han had seen before, with swooping curves and intricate patterns etched into stone-like material. This is remnant technology, Nari breathed. running her hand along one of the pillars, like the navigation node we found in the asteroid field, but much older. Sumin's scanner beeped excitedly. I'm picking up energy readings beneath us. Faint, but definitely artificial. Han tapped his communicator. Security. Establish a wider perimeter. We've found something. They spent the next hour carefully exploring the ruins, eventually discovering what appeared to be an entrance, a circular opening leading down into darkness. Han shone his light into the passage. It looks stable. Enough, he said. Sumin, you and the security team head back to the ship. Bring excavation equipment and June's team. Nari and I will take a preliminary look. After the others departed, Han and Nari descended into the passage. The air grew cooler as they moved deeper, the walls changing from rough stone to a smooth, almost metallic surface inscribed with symbols Nari recognized from her studies. These are remnant glyphs, she explained, tracing one with her finger. They tell a story of guardians, I think, protectors of something valuable. The passage opened into a large chamber that took their breath away. The ceiling arched high. Above them, embedded with crystals that glowed with a soft blue light. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a small, polished cube made of the same material as the walls. What is this place? Han whispered, his voice echoing, slightly. A repository, Nari said with certainty. The remnants built these to preserve important knowledge. She approached the pedestal carefully. This cube is a data storage device, infinitely more advanced than anything the Coalition has developed. Handy. Watched as she examined the cube without touching it. Can you access it? Perhaps. Nari's skin glowed brighter as she concentrated. The remnants designed their technology to respond to certain mental patterns. My people studied this for generations. She closed her eyes, placing her hands near, but not touching the cube. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, the cube began to glow, rising slightly off the pedestal. The chamber filled with projected images, star charts, DNA strands, and symbols flowing through the air around them. It's incredible, Han said, turning slowly to take it all in. What does it show? Nari's expression was one of wonder and growing concern. It's a record of genetic experimentation. The remnants were studying the development of empathic abilities across species. She pointed to one projection showing a DNA strand with highlighted sections. This is Aurelian DNA, but from thousands of years ago. And these, she gestured to other strands, belong to other species, many now extinct. Han moved closer, to her. What does it mean? It means the empathic abilities of my people weren't natural evolution, Nari said softly. They were engineered by the remnants, as part of some larger experiment. Her skin pulsed with emotional turmoil. And this particular genetic marker that my research identified, she pointed to a specific highlighted sequence. It was deliberately included as a key of sorts. A key to what? To unlock the full potential for interspecies empathic transference. The remnants created it, then buried the knowledge here as if they were afraid of what they'd done. Before Han could respond, they heard footsteps in the passage. June appeared with Tae-ho and several crew members carrying equipment. Captain, June called, we've picked up a transmission. Someone's found a way to communicate despite the nebula's interference. Han tensed. Coalition? No. June handed him a data pad. It's addressed specifically to you, encrypted with an old Earth military code. The signature is White Fox. Han's eyes widened. That's Admiral Kim's codename from the Border Wars. He quickly decrypted the message, reading it with growing interest. She wants to meet us. Says she has information about what's really happening with Coalition intelligence and the Aurelians. Can we trust her? Nari asked. Han considered. Admiral, Kim was my mentor at the academy. She's the reason I have this command. If she's reaching out now despite the risk to her career, he made his decision. We'll meet her, but carefully. Jun, prepare the Whisper for launch. Minimal crew. Just you, me, and Nari. Is bringing Nari wise? Jun asked quietly. If it's a trap, then they'd find the Pathfinder anyway, Han finished. Besides, this concerns her more than any of us. Back aboard the ship, tensions ran high as they prepared the stealth shuttle for departure. Han briefed his crew on contingency plans while Taeho made final checks to the Whisper systems. As evening fell, by their artificial ship time, Han found Nari in the observation lounge, staring out at the eerie landscape of the moon. Her bioluminescence was dimmed, reflecting her troubled thoughts. "You've been quiet since the ruins," he said, sitting beside her. "I'm processing," she admitted. "Everything I believed about my people, our special abilities, to learn it was all engineered by another species thousands of years ago." "Does it change who you are?" Han asked gently. She turned to look at him. "Doesn't it? If what makes me special was artificially created, isn't everything, in a way?" Han interrupted. "Natural selection, cosmic chance, deliberate engineering, they're all just different paths to the same outcome. You still choose what to do with who you are." Nari considered his words, her skin gradually brightening. "For someone from a young species, you sometimes show remarkable wisdom." Han smiled. "We humans have our moments." Something shifted between them in that quiet moment, a tension that had been building since their escape from the Void Raiders. Han reached out, hesitating just before touching her luminescent skin. "May I?" he asked. Nari nodded, and Han gently traced the glowing patterns on her arm. The touch sent pleasant shivers through both of them. "There's something I haven't told you," Nari said softly. "About Aurelian empathic bonds. When I healed you on the Raider ship, we formed a connection. It's usually temporary, but it's lingered between us." "I've felt it," Han admitted, "like I can sense your emotions sometimes just at the edge of my awareness." "Such connections are rare between Aurelians and other species," Nari explained. "Almost unheard of, actually. But now I wonder if that's because of the genetic key the remnants created, the one I happen to carry." Their eyes met, and something pulled them closer together. When their lips finally touched, a surge of sensation washed over them both. Not just physical but emotional, a sharing of feelings that transcended ordinary experience. Nari's skin blazed with brilliant blue light illuminating the entire lounge. They pulled apart, breathless and stunned by the intensity of the connection. "That was..." Han struggled for words. "Impossible," Nari whispered. "Yet it happened." The moment was interrupted by an urgent call from the bridge. "Captain, we're picking up approaching vessels at the edge of the nebula. Coalition signatures." Reality crashed back around them. They had found a remarkable connection, but also a terrible danger, both to themselves and to countless others, if the wrong people discovered what Nari could do. The hunt was closing in and time was running out. The stealth shuttle Whisper sliced silently through the blackness of space, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it nearly invisible against the backdrop of stars. Inside the cramped cabin, Han checked the navigation systems one last time while Nari watched the view screen with nervous anticipation. Jun manned the sensor array, his fingers flying over the controls as he monitored for any signs of pursuit. "Approaching. The rendezvous coordinates," Han announced, his voice tight with tension. "No sign of Admiral Kim's ship yet." "Are we sure this isn't a trap?" Jun asked, not for the first time. "The timing is suspicious, right as Coalition vessels enter the nebula." "Kim taught me everything I know about strategy," Han replied. "If she wanted to capture us, she wouldn't need elaborate deception." He glanced at Nari. "How are you holding up?" Nari's skin pulsed with a mixture of blue and purple hues, anxiety tinged with determination. "I'm ready for whatever comes next." After their discoveries on the moon and that moment of profound connection in the observation lounge, something had changed between them. The empathic bond they now shared allowed Han to sense her emotions without words, an intimacy that still startled him with its depth. A small alert chimed on the control panel. "Incoming vessel," Jun reported. "Running dark, minimal power signature. It's a diplomatic courier. High speed, low profile. On the view screen, a sleek black ship materialized as it dropped out of FTL travel. No markings, no identification. The kind of vessel used for sensitive diplomatic missions where discretion was paramount. That's her, Han said with certainty. Bring us alongside docking pattern Omega. As the Whisper maneuvered toward the larger ship, a communication came through on a heavily encrypted channel. Took you long enough, Captain. The voice was female, crisp with authority but tinged with warmth. I was beginning to think you'd lost your touch for punctuality, Han smiled despite the tense situation. Nice to hear your voice too, Admiral. Permission to dock? Granted, come aboard quickly, we don't have much time. The Whisper connected with a soft metallic thunk to the courier ship's auxiliary airlock. Han turned to his companions. Jun, stay. With the shuttle. Keep it ready for immediate departure. Nari, with me. The airlock cycled open to reveal a short corridor leading to a small meeting room where a woman in her 60s with short silver hair and sharp eyes waited. Despite wearing civilian clothes rather than a uniform, Admiral Kim carried herself with unmistakable military bearing. Han, she said simply, embracing him briefly before turning her analytical gaze to Nari. And you must be the Aurelian scientist causing all this trouble. I am Nari, she replied, standing tall despite her nervousness. Kim gestured for them to sit at a small table. I'll be direct. 6 months ago, I began noticing unusual patterns in coalition intelligence operations, unauthorized missions, resources diverted to classified projects, personnel transfers that made no sense. She activated a holographic display showing various documents and data streams. It took time, but I traced it to a secret program called Empathy Horizon, headed by General Tay. I've seen him, Nari said, her skin darkening. He was there when I was captured. Kim nodded grimly. Tay and his followers believe the coalition faces existential threats that conventional defenses can't counter. They've been pursuing ways to enhance our capabilities. Their latest focus has been empathic manipulation. Mind control, Han translated bluntly. In essence, yes. When they discovered references to the remnant genetic experiments with Aurelians in some ancient texts, they became obsessed with finding living Aurelians with the specific genetic marker. Kim looked directly at Nari. Subjects like you. Han leaned forward. How deep does this conspiracy go? Not as wide as Tai would like, but deep enough to be dangerous. He has supporters on the Coalition Council who look the other way, providing resources and political cover. Kim's expression hardened. The good news is, many of us in Coalition leadership oppose this. We've formed a network to protect vulnerable species and expose Tai's operation. How does this help us now? Han asked. The Coalition has branded us fugitives. They're hunting us across the sector. I can get you into Coalition headquarters, Kim said, producing a small data crystal. During the annual diplomatic summit that begins tomorrow. With these credentials and access codes, you can reach the council chambers and present evidence of Tay's illegal activities directly to the full council. Han stared at her in disbelief. That's your plan? Walk straight into the heart of Coalition. Power when there are shoot-on-sight orders for us? Sometimes the safest place is right under their noses, Kim replied calmly. Tay would never expect such audacity. Besides, with proper disguises and these credentials, you'll appear as diplomatic. Staff from the Procyon system. Their representatives all wear environmental suits due to their atmospheric requirements, perfect for concealing identities. Nari spoke up. Even if we reach the council, why would they believe us over a respected general? Kim smiled thinly. Because you have something Tay doesn't. The truth and the means to share it directly. She looked meaningfully at Nari. Your empathic abilities combined with the evidence I've gathered will be compelling. The plan was audacious, possibly suicidal, but also their best chance. After further discussion of details and contingencies, Han and Nari prepared to depart. One more thing, Kim said as they headed back to the airlock. My sources tell me Tai has made a breakthrough. He's developed a prototype device based on remnant technology that can force empathic connections. Crude, painful but effective. If he's allowed to perfect it, he won't be, Han promised. 26 hours later, the grandeur of Coalition headquarters loomed before them. The massive space station orbiting a neutral world was a marvel of cooperative engineering, with sections, built by each of the major Coalition species, to reflect their architectural styles and needs. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy congregated here, making it both the perfect hiding place and the most dangerous location possible for fugitives. Han and Nari, disguised in the environmental suits of Procyon diplomats, moved through the crowded corridors with June following as their aide. Kim's credentials had gotten them past the outer security checkpoints, but as they approached the inner sanctum where the council would soon convene, the security grew tighter. Identification and authorization, demanded a stern security officer at the final checkpoint. Han presented the diplomatic passes. The officer scanned them, frowning slightly at his display. Purpose of your attendance at today's session? We're presenting the Procyon position on the new trade agreements, Han replied, using the cover story Kim had prepared. The officer studied them for a long moment before nodding. Proceed. The session begins in 20 minutes. All observers must remain in the designated areas. They passed through the checkpoint breathing sighs of relief inside their concealing suits. That was too easy, June whispered. I agree, Han said tensely. Stay alert. The council chamber was a vast circular room with tiered seating surrounding a central speaking floor. Representatives from over 100 worlds filled the seats, their diverse forms and colors creating a living tapestry of galactic civilization. Han led their small group to the Procyon delegation's assigned seats, scanning the chamber for any sign of General Tai. They spotted him across the chamber, deep in conversation with several council members. Even from a distance, his commanding presence was evident. Tall, distinguished with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to power and obedience. There he is, Han murmured. Once the session begins, we'll have our opening when the floor is opened for new business. But as the council members took their formal positions and the session was called to order, Han noticed security personnel moving along the outer ring of the chamber, checking credentials more carefully than usual. One officer was showing others a display on his handheld device, and they appeared to be systematically working their way around the room. We've been compromised, Han whispered. They're looking for us. June tensed. Should we abort? No, Nari said firmly. This is our only chance. We need to move now before they reach us. Without waiting for agreement, she stood and began moving down toward the central floor. Han and June had no choice but to follow. Their movement drew attention, unexpected and out of protocol. The head counselor, a distinguished Altarian with silvery fur, paused in his opening remarks. The council recognizes the representatives from Procyon. It was not what they had planned, but Nari seized the moment. She stepped onto the speaking floor, aware of all eyes upon her. With deliberate movements, she removed her environmental helmet, revealing her Aurelian features to the shocked assembly. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the chamber. Security officers began moving toward them. My name is Nari of Aurelia, she announced, her clear voice carrying through the sudden commotion. I come before this council not as an enemy of the Coalition, but as a witness to crimes being committed in your name. Seize them, General Tai shouted, rising from his seat. These are dangerous fugitives. Security officers rushed forward, weapons drawn. Han and June removed their helmets as well, standing protectively on either side of Nari. Before you act, Han called out to the council. Know that Admiral Kim of Earth has provided evidence of General Tai's illegal operations. He has been kidnapping Aurelians, collaborating with Void Raiders, and developing prohibited empathic weapons. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some council members demanded the intruders be removed immediately, while others called for them to be heard. The security officers hesitated, unsure whose orders to follow. In that crucial moment of confusion, the chamber doors slid open to reveal Admiral Kim flanked by her own security detail. I vouch for these individuals, she announced formally. "And I request emergency consideration of the evidence they bring." The head counselor raised his hands for silence. "General Tay, these are serious accusations. What say you?" Tay stepped onto the speaking floor, his face a mask of righteous indignation. "These are the desperate lies of criminals. This woman," he pointed at Nari, "is a researcher who stole classified information. Her human accomplices helped her escape justice, nothing more." "That is not true," Nari replied calmly, "and I can prove it." Tay laughed coldly. "How? Your word against mine? I who have served the coalition faithfully for decades?" "Not with words," Nari said. She closed her eyes, concentrating deeply. Her skin began to glow with increasing intensity, pulses of blue light radiating outward. But with truth that cannot be hidden. Han felt the familiar connection with her strengthen, but now it expanded beyond just the two of them. Throughout, the chamber, beings of different species suddenly straightened, their expressions changing to surprise and then understanding as Nari projected not just emotions but clear memories. Her capture, Tai's observation, the remnant ruins, and the revelation of what he intended to do with Aurelian empathic abilities. It was unprecedented, an empathic connection spanning dozens of different species simultaneously, allowing them to experience her memories directly rather than just hear testimony. Tay staggered backward, his face contorted with rage. "Stop this immediately." He pulled a small device from his pocket, the prototype Kim had warned them about. "Two can play at this game." Before anyone could react, he activated the device. A harsh, discordant wave of forced empathic energy blasted through the chamber, causing many to cry out in pain. But rather than breaking Nari's connection, something unexpected happened. The artificial signal collided with her natural empathic field, creating a resonance that amplified rather than disrupted. The entire chamber was suddenly linked in a web of shared consciousness, not just experiencing Nari's memories, but each other's reactions. Council members felt the horror of their peers. Security officers understood the fear of those they protected, and most importantly, everyone felt the cold calculation behind Tay's actions as his own mental shields crumbled under the combined empathic pressure. In that moment of unprecedented connection, the truth was undeniable. No words, no evidence, no testimony could have been more convincing than this direct experience of shared truth. The resonance lasted only seconds before subsiding, but its effect was profound. As everyone recovered, a new silence fell over the chamber, not of confusion but of clarity. "Arrest General Tay," the head counselor ordered, his voice shaking slightly from the experience. "And secure that device for immediate containment." As security moved to take the stunned general into custody, Han stepped forward. "The evidence Admiral Kim has gathered will confirm everything you've experienced. There are others involved who must also be held accountable." The following hours passed in a blur of formal statements, evidence presentations, and council deliberations. Han, Nari, and June were placed under protective custody rather than arrest, while the full scope of Tai's conspiracy was investigated. Admiral Kim's evidence proved damning, revealing a network of illegal operations spanning multiple sectors. By the next morning, the council had reached several preliminary conclusions. Han and his crew were formally exonerated of all charges. More significantly, the council acknowledged the special vulnerability of the remaining Aurelians and established immediate protections for them under coalition law. In a private meeting with Han and Nari, the head counselor offered a formal apology. "We have failed in our duty to protect all sentient beings equally," he admitted. "This incident has revealed troubling biases within our structure, viewing younger species like humans as less valuable members and treating endangered species like the Aurelians as resources rather than partners." He leaned forward earnestly. "We wish to correct these failings." "How?" Han asked, still wary despite their vindication. "By creating new roles," the counselor replied. "Captain Han, in recognition of your courage and integrity, we offer you the position of Special Envoy for Interspecies Relations. And Nari, we would be honored if you would lead a new research initiative studying empathic communication. not for weapons but for healing and understanding. Their eyes met, both thinking the same thing. Accepting would mean separation, as their duties would take them to different corners of the galaxy. "We appreciate the offers," Han said carefully. "But we've learned something important through this experience. The boundaries between species can be bridges rather than barriers, but only if we work together. We would propose an alternative," Nari added, "a joint mission of exploration and diplomacy. The Pathfinder is already equipped for deep space research, and its crew has proven exceptional at fostering understanding across species boundaries." The counselor considered this, his whiskers twitching thoughtfully. "A shared mission? Yes, I can see the symbolic value. It would demonstrate our new approach quite effectively." 3 weeks later, the Pathfinder hovered in space dock, its systems upgraded and its mission parameters expanded. The crew had been given commendations, and more significantly, the choice to remain aboard or transfer to less controversial assignments. Not a single crew member had chosen to leave. On the observation deck, Han and Nari stood side by side, watching as the final preparations were completed. Through the viewport, they could see their new mission patch being applied to the hull, the eye. Traditional coalition emblem now encircled by symbols representing cooperation and discovery. "Are you ready for this?" Han asked, taking her hand. Where their skin touched, a soft glow emanated, the visible sign of their unique connection. A journey into the unknown, charting new territories both in space and in understanding. Nari's skin rippled with patterns of joy and anticipation. "I can't imagine anything more fitting." Beyond the viewport, the vast expanse of unexplored space beckoned. But the greatest exploration had already begun. The discovery of what was possible when different worlds truly understood each other, not just through words or treaties, but through genuine connection. As the Pathfinder's engines powered up for departure, Han gave the command to his diverse crew, humans working alongside the small contingent of Aurelians who had volunteered to join their mission, plus representatives from 3 other coalition species who had requested to participate in this unprecedented venture. "Take us out," Han said, his fingers still intertwined with Nari's. "Let's show the galaxy what's possible when we learn to truly understand each other." The ship moved gracefully away from the dock, its course set not just for distant stars, but for a new kind of future, one built on bridges rather than barriers, on connection rather than division. And throughout the coalition, beings of countless species watched the news of their departure with newfound curiosity about humans, who had proven themselves not through technological might or military power, but through their capacity for empathy, understanding, and moral courage.